The day was heavy with southern heat, and Lord Eddard Stark felt it sink into his bones as he sat in the chambers of the Hand. King Robert was out hunting, leaving Ned to deal with the endless bickering of lords and whispers of power. Yet his mind was elsewhere, haunted by the trail of secrets Jon Arryn had followed before his sudden death. The truth of Robert's children, their golden hair, and the shadow of Lannister ambition weighed heavily on him. In this timeline, however, Ned Stark's northern caution pushed him to act differently. He knew he was out of his element in King's Landing, a wolf surrounded by lions and serpents. But unlike before, he decided he would not face these games alone. He turned to the one man everyone whispered about, the Master of Coin, Petyr Baelish, Littlefinger. But this time, Ned did not allow himself to be blinded by the man's sly smile and sweet promises. He remembered Catelyn's warnings. He remembered the bitterness of Baelish's past, his obsession with her. And so, when Littlefinger leaned in with his serpent's tongue and said, "You must trust me, my lord, if you wish to survive this city," Ned did not nod. He only studied him with those pale grey eyes, unyielding as winter. Instead of following Littlefinger's advice blindly, Ned had Varys summoned in the same meeting. Two snakes in one room, their masks slipping in the presence of each other. Varys, always cautious, spoke in riddles, but Ned pressed him harder than before. "If I am to protect Robert and his realm, I need truths, not shadows," he demanded. Jon Arryn's death was no fever. Someone wanted him silenced. And if it was not the Lannisters, then who profits? Littlefinger smirked, pretending offense. "My Lord Hand, you wound me. I've ever been your friend." But Varys, ever the spider, sensed an opportunity. In this altered thread of fate, he let slip more than he should have. "Lord Stark, not all daggers are Lannister gold. Some are sharper, forged from envy, from old wounds. Petyr Baelish's games are older than you know." The room grew cold. Littlefinger tried to laugh it away, but Ned, unlike the fool he had been in the true tale, demanded answers. He summoned the dagger that once nearly killed Bran, brought forth in front of both men. And with icy calm, Ned recited what he knew. Petyr had lied, claiming Tyrion owned it. The lie had already stoked dangerous fires between the Crown and the Lannisters. Varys confirmed it softly. The dagger was not Tyrion's. It was never his. For the first time, Petyr Baelish faltered. His words twisted, but his smirk no longer fooled Ned Stark. And in that moment, Eddard did something uncharacteristic of the honorable North. He played the game just enough. He ordered the City Watch to detain Baelish, publicly stripping him of influence before the lords of the small council. The shock was like wildfire in King's Landing. Baelish, the sly whisperer, the man no one dared cross, humiliated in chains. Cersei seethed but remained quiet, for this was not her fight yet. Varys watched carefully, knowing the board had changed, and so Ned Stark walked a darker path than in the true history. He had exposed one snake, but in doing so he made himself a far greater target. For Petyr Baelish, dragged to the black cells, swore he would not rot alone. His venom would spill, his secrets unleashed, and King's Landing would tremble before the truths he had hoarded like treasure. What neither Varys nor Cersei realized yet was this: the moment Ned Stark chose to unmask Littlefinger, he cracked open the hidden heart of the realm. Every quiet deal, every betrayal, every hidden sin, Littlefinger carried them all. And in his fury he would not go quietly. For the first time, the Game of Thrones had shifted from whispers in the dark to a storm in the open daylight. And the wolf from the north had drawn first blood. The news spread faster than wildfire. Petyr Baelish, the sly master of coin, dragged to the black cells like a common thief. The lords of King's Landing gossiped in silk-draped halls, and the merchants whispered of it in the streets. To the small folk, he had always been the one who managed the crown's debts, a man too clever by half. Now he was nothing but a prisoner in chains, and already wagers were being made on how long before his head graced a spike on the Red Keep. Yet King's Landing was never still for long. The city thrived on secrets, and Baelish had too many buried in its gutters. From his cell he demanded to speak. to Ned Stark, to the small council, to anyone who would listen. But Eddard was not a man easily swayed by desperate words. He allowed only one meeting, himself, Sir Barristan Selmy, and Varys present as witnesses. Baelish entered shackled, yet his smirk remained. "My Lord Hand," he began, his voice dripping false sweetness, "you've made a grave mistake. The lions will tear you apart, and when they do, they'll feast on your daughters too." Ned's jaw tightened. "You lied about the dagger. You set my wife against the Lannisters, pushed the realm toward war." "Why?" Littlefinger chuckled. "Why does any man play the game, Stark? For power, for love, for survival. Pick your reason." He leaned forward, his chains clinking. "But make no mistake, you think you've unmasked me, but you've only peeled one layer. The truth will ruin you more than it ruins me." It was Varys who pressed him then, calm and curious. "What truths, Lord Baelish?" Petter's eyes glittered. He knew if he was to die, he would not go quietly. "The Queen's children. They are not Robert's. That was Jon Arryn's discovery, wasn't it, Stark? Did you think you were the first to stumble upon it? I knew before Arryn died, before you arrived. I fed the whispers. And when he grew too curious, I made certain his curiosity was silenced. The words fell like a sword between them." Sir Barristan stiffened. Varys' eyes narrowed, and Ned felt the chill of winter in his veins. Jon Arryn's death, the seed of all this chaos, tied directly to Petyr Baelish. "You confessed to murder." Ned's voice was iron. Baelish only smiled. "I confess to survival. Call it murder if you wish, but in King's Landing, survival is all that matters. And if you think removing me will bring peace, you are more foolish than Robert on a hunt." For the first time, Ned Stark did not know if the man was bluffing. Yet the truth of Cersei's children being bastards gnawed at him. He had proof enough now to act, but he also knew the danger of speaking too soon. Robert was still hunting, drunk and far from court. The Queen would strike first if she sensed the walls closing in, so Ned made his choice. Baelish would remain in the black cells until Robert's return. He would face a king's justice, not just a wolf's judgment. But that choice had consequences. Cersei Lannister was no fool. She saw the way the court whispered, the glances cast her way. She pressed Pycelle for news, threatened Varys in private, even confronted Ned himself. "Release him," she demanded, her golden hair shining in the torchlight of the council chamber. "Lord Baelish has served this realm faithfully for years. You shame the crown by throwing him in a cell without the king's word." Ned met her gaze without flinching. "The king will decide when he returns." Her smile was venom. "By then, my lord, it may be too late. The city bleeds when one of its masters is cut down." The threat was plain, but Ned did not yield. He had chosen his path, and honor bound him to it. Yet deep down he sensed the storm brewing. The Lannisters would not wait quietly. And Petyr Baelish, chained in the dark, whispered his secrets to the rats and guards, sowing chaos even from the shadows. That very night, the gold cloaks of the City Watch found themselves divided. Some swore to Ned, loyal to his northern strength. Others still answered to Baelish, for his coin had fed their purses for years. A few slipped into the Queen's service, bought with promises of power. The city, once held together by unseen strings, began to fray. And as Eddard Stark looked out from the Red Keep toward the Blackwater, he wondered if, by unmasking one snake, he had unleashed a nest of vipers. For the first time in many years, the Lord of Winterfell wished for the biting cold of the north. In King's Landing, the heat was suffocating, and blood was surely about to spill. Robert Baratheon came thundering back to King's Landing after his hunt, reeking of sweat, wine, and boar's blood. He was loud, laughing and cursing as always, but behind the laughter was the heaviness of a man who drank too much to hide his unhappiness. When he heard of Littlefinger's imprisonment, his first response was a booming laugh that shook the hall. "Seven hells, Ned. I always said the little shit was too clever for his own good. What's he done now? Gambling debts too high? Stolen coin from the treasury?" But Ned's face was solemn. "It is no jest, Robert. Baelish is no mere schemer with coin. He lied, he sowed division between the crown and the Lannisters, and more, he was behind Jon Arryn's death." The laughter died in Robert's throat. For a moment the king's ruddy face hardened, the fury of a storm brewing in his eyes. Jon Arryn had been more than a mentor to him. He had been a father. "Say that again, Ned," Robert growled. Slowly, and so Ned did. He laid out the dagger, the lies, the confession Baelish had spilled in his arrogance. Robert's hand clenched around his cup until the wood splintered. "By the gods," he spat, "I'll gut the snake myself." But Cersei was there too, pale and furious, her golden eyes sharp as daggers. "You would take the word of a northern fool over a man who has served this realm faithfully?" she snapped. "Littlefinger has been loyal for years, while your hand sits here sowing chaos." Robert rounded on her with a snarl, drunk but dangerous. "Be silent, woman, before I put you in chains next to him." For a heartbeat the court froze. Even Cersei blinked at the venom in his voice. Then she smiled soft and cold and said no more. But her silence was not surrender, it was calculation. That night Robert ordered Baelish brought before him. Peter played his role well, meek, wounded, but never without that faint smirk. "I only served the realm, your grace. I only sought to protect you, to shield you from plots that circle like vultures." Lord Stark twists words. "He has always despised me." "Did you kill Jon Arryn?" Robert roared. "I did not, my king." Baelish's voice was smooth as silk. "But I know who did. And if I am cut down, that truth dies with me." Robert's fury wavered. He was a man who trusted his instincts on the battlefield, not in whispers and shadows. He looked between Ned's icy stare and Baelish's silver tongue, then slammed his fist on the table. "Enough! You'll rot in the cells until I've had time to think. If I find you guilty, I'll see your head roll myself." And so Littlefinger's life lingered on a knife's edge, but the damage was done. That night, Cersei summoned Jaime to her chambers. Her voice was low but urgent, her mask of calm stripped away. "Stark knows too much," she hissed. "Baelish has always been useful, but now he's dangerous. If Robert listens to him, or to Stark, we're finished, all of us. The children most of all. Jaime, reckless as ever, offered steel. I can put a sword through Ned Stark's heart before dawn." But Cersei shook her head. "Not yet. Too many eyes are on him." "No, brother. We need the gold cloaks. We need the city to be ours before Robert wakes from his next hunt-drunk slumber. And if Baelish thinks to buy his life with our secrets, then we'll silence him too." Meanwhile, Ned wrote letters northward, sending ravens to Winterfell, to Stannis at Dragonstone, and even to Renley. He trusted no one else. The truth about Cersei's children had to be spread beyond the Red Keep in case he did not live to tell it. He remembered too well the venom in Cersei's smile, and the way the city bent itself around the Lannisters' will, and still Baelish whispered in the dark. To guards, to jailers, to any man who would listen. He promised them gold, power, brothels of their own, and some listened. Already the city watch wavered, uncertain if their loyalty lay with the wolf from the north, the drunken king, or the queen with golden hair and endless coin. By unmasking Littlefinger, Ned Stark had pulled the veil from the game. But the game had not ended. It had only turned bloodier, and in the shadows of the Red Keep, Varys moved like a spider, his whispers spreading faster than wildfire. He had always said he served the realm, but in truth he served only the realm as he imagined it. And now, with Baelish in chains and Stark pushing against the lions, he began to weave a new web. The capital was no longer a nest of schemes hidden in the dark. It was a storm about to break in open daylight. The days after Robert's return were filled with tension so thick the Red Keep itself seemed to groan under it. Lords and ladies moved carefully, as though one wrong word might be their death sentence. The city hummed with rumor, Baelish rotting in the black cells, Stark and the Queen glaring daggers across the council table, and the king drinking himself into a stupor while the realm edged closer to war. It was then that Renley Baratheon, young and ambitious, made his move. He visited Ned Stark in the Hand's chambers, dressed not in silk finery, but in plain armor, polished and gleaming. His tone was low, urgent, and far more serious than his usual flirtations and jests. "My Lord Hand," Renley began, "you know what my brother is. Blind to plots, deaf to reason, and too fond of the bottle. You've uncovered the Queen's secrets, but you'll not live to act on them if you sit idle." Cersei won't wait. We must strike first. Ned's grey eyes narrowed. And what do you suggest? Renley leaned closer. We take her children. All three. Secure them in the Red Keep before she can spirit them away. Once we have them, Robert will have no choice but to act. He'll set them aside, and then we can place the true heir on the throne. Ned recoiled. You speak of seizing children like hostages. That is not my way. Renly's jaw tightened. And if you cling to honor, you'll be buried with it. I offer you a chance to save your daughters, to save the realm. But you must move now. The gold cloaks will follow me if I give the word. For a long moment, the wolf and the stag stared each other down. Ned's silence was his answer. Renly saw it, shook his head and muttered, Then you're a fool. And fools don't last long in this city. By dawn, he was gone, slipping from the capital with his household guard, already planning to raise banners in the Stormlands. When Varys learned of Renly's flight, he smiled to himself in the dark. One more thread loosened, one more piece shifted on the board. He reported it to Ned with his usual riddles. A young stag has left the herd, my lord. He runs fast, but perhaps not fast enough. The lions will surely notice, and notice they did. Cersei wasted no time. That very evening she summoned Janos Slynt, commander of the City Watch, and poured promises of gold and lordship into his ears. When the moment comes, she whispered, you and your men will decide the future of this city. Stand with the lions and you'll never want for power again. Janos bent the knee, but not fully. The gold cloaks were split. Some swayed by her promises, others still loyal to Ned after he paid them generously from the treasury. The City Watch was a sword that could cut either way, and for now it lay trembling in its scabbard. Meanwhile, Petyr Baelish festered in his cell. He had not been idle. With coins smuggled in through sympathetic jailers, he spread whispers through the city like plague. Brothel keepers, merchants, even hedge knights, all heard rumors that Ned Stark plotted to overthrow the king, that he planned to crown Stannis, that he meant to drag the realm into war for northern pride. The lies spread faster than truth ever could, and soon even Robert heard them muttered in the halls. The king confronted Ned one night, drunk and red-faced. Tell me true, Ned. Do you mean to set my brothers against me? To crown Stannis in my stead? Ned's face darkened with pain. I swore to you in the Godswood at Winterfell, Robert. I'm your man as I ever was, but you blind yourself to the truth. Your children, they are not yours. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Robert's fist clenched, his face purple with rage, but not at Ned, at himself, at the life he'd been living, the lies he'd swallowed. His cup slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. Gods help me, he muttered, voice breaking. All of it. All these years. For once, Robert Baratheon looked like a broken man instead of a king. Cersei, however, was not broken. She was sharpening her claws. That very night, she sent Jaime to secure the children's chambers. Guards loyal to her replaced those loyal to Robert. The Queen's nest was fortified. The storm had arrived. The wolves stood against the lions, the spiders wove their webs, and the stag was lost in his cups. And in the dungeons below, the mocking laughter of Petyr Baelish echoed in the dark, for even in chains, his poison still spread. The game was no longer about secrets. It was about survival. It was no longer about secrets. It was about survival. The morning air in the capital was thick, heavy with tension. Robert Baratheon had not left his chambers since Ned laid bare the truth. He drank, raged, smashed goblets against the walls, and cursed the gods for mocking him with golden-haired bastards. Servants tiptoed about in terror, and even Jaime Lannister kept his distance. But on the third day, the king emerged. His eyes were bloodshot, his beard ragged, but his steps carried purpose. He strode into the council chamber, slammed his warhammer onto the table and growled, "Summon them, all of them. My council, the queen, her children. Today the truth comes out, the lords obeyed." One by one they gathered. Cersei with her lions of Lannister pride, her children kept just outside the chamber under guard. Pycelle wheezing and trembling. Varys serene as always. And Ned pale but resolute, with Sue Barristan by his side. Robert's voice thundered like a battlefield charge. "You all think me blind, a fat fool lost in his cups, but no longer. The truth has reached me, and I'll have it spoken plain, here and now. These children," he spat the word like venom, "are not mine. They are Jaime Lannister's get. And the realm has been ruled by bastards." Gasps filled the chamber. Pycelle nearly collapsed where he stood. Varys only folded his hands, as though he'd expected this all along. Cersei, however, did not flinch. Her chin rose, her eyes blazed. "You call yourself a king, yet you are nothing but a drunken oaf. Yes, they are Jaime's, and better his than yours. You never loved them. You never loved me. All you ever loved was your precious Lyanna." The silence after her words was like a blade pressed against every throat. Robert's fury shook him. But before he could strike, Jaime stepped forward, hand on his sword. "Say one more word against her, and I'll cut you down where you stand," Steel rasped as Sir Barristan drew his blade. The room teetered on the edge of slaughter, but it was Ned Stark who broke the silence, his voice hard as winter. "This is treason. The children are illegitimate. They cannot inherit the throne. By law, the heir is Stannis Baratheon." Robert looked at him, and in that moment the weight of years seemed to crash upon him. "Stannis," he muttered, bitter and weary. "A joyless stone, but a true one. Aye, he'll have it after me. I'll not let lions tear apart my realm." The council dissolved into chaos. Pycelle protested weakly, sputtering about precedent. Cersei demanded Robert's arrest for slander. Jaime's sword was half drawn, but Robert slammed his hammer against the table once more, and all fell silent. "Enough! The truth is the truth, and I am still your king." The order was given that very day, Jaime Lannister to be arrested, the Queen confined to her chambers, her children placed under guard. Robert swore they would be kept safe but stripped of their claim. It might have worked, if not for Baelish. From his cell, the whispers he had planted began to bear fruit. The gold cloaks muttered that Stark and the king meant to kill the Queen's children. Merchants shouted in the streets that the North wished to usurp the throne. In the shadows of Flea Bottom, knives were sharpened and mobs formed. By nightfall, the city was already in flames. Gold cloaks fought each other in the alleys, some wearing the stag's colors, others swearing to the lion. Houses were raided, doors smashed in. The small folk screamed as rumors spread that war had begun within the Red Keep itself. Cersei acted swiftly. While Robert drank himself into stupor after the council, she sent her loyalists into the dungeons. Baelish was freed, though half mad with filth and fury. "You owe me your life," she whispered, "and now you will buy it back with fire and blood." Petyr smiled through broken teeth. "Oh, my queen, I'll give you more than that. I'll give you the realm in chaos. It's the only way I've ever known how to play." By dawn, the city was divided. Wolves and stags held the Red Keep. Lions prowled the streets, and the spider whispered to all sides, feeding the fire with his careful lies. Robert Baratheon had wanted truth. He got war instead. And in the stillness before the storm broke fully, Ned Stark stood by the window of his chambers, staring at the horizon. The ravens had flown, carrying his letters north and to Dragonstone. But would help come in time? Or would King's Landing drown in blood before another hand could touch the Iron Throne? For the first time since Winterfell, Eddard Stark allowed himself to wonder if the gods had abandoned him. The first screams came at dawn. By mid-morning, King's Landing had become a battlefield. The gold cloaks clashed in the narrow streets, half carrying the stag of Baratheon, half sworn to the lions. Torches lit up the slums of Flea Bottom, and smoke drifted toward the Red Keep. The small folk panicked, looting and fleeing as soldiers smashed doors and dragged men out into the streets. The Game of Thrones was no longer whispers in chambers. It was blood in the gutters. From the Red Keep, Ned Stark looked down at the city's chaos. "This is what comes of secrets and lies," he muttered. Sir Barristan at his side remained grim, sword in hand. Robert sat slumped on his throne, half drunk already, his warhammer leaning against the Iron Throne's steps. "They fight for me," Robert slurred, though his eyes were heavy. "My stags will break the lions yet." Ned turned on him, his patience finally spent. "They fight because you were too blind to see what festered in your own house. This city burns, and your children, true or false, are in danger." Robert bellowed laughter, though it rang hollow. "My children? Ha! None of them mine." Let the bitch keep her bastards." Then his face twisted with rage, the fury returning for an instant. "But I'll see the Kingslayer's head on a spike before this day ends." Before Ned could answer, a messenger stumbled into the hall, blood on his tunic. "The lions have taken the Gate of the Gods. Jaime Lannister rides with them. The gold cloaks turn faster than we can count. We cannot hold the city." The words cut like a knife. Robert lurched to his feet, seizing his hammer, roaring like the warrior he once was. "Then I'll meet him in the streets. I'll show the Golden Knight how a king fights." But Barristan and Ned both blocked his path. Robert was strong, aye, but too drunk, too tired, his body no longer the weapon it had once been. To send him out was to send him to his death. "We must flee the keep," Ned said. "Take your loyal men, ride to the harbor and sail for Dragonstone. Stannis will hold the fleet there, and with him we can rally." But Robert shook his head like a stubborn bull. "No, I was made king by battle, and I'll not die cowering on a ship." He pushed past them, his hammer dragging sparks along the floor. "If the lions want my throne, they'll have to take it from my dead hands." And so Robert Baratheon, drunk but unbroken, led his household guard into the streets of his own capital. Ned, torn between duty to his king and the safety of his daughters, chose quickly. He sent Sansa and Arya under guard with Septa Mordain and a handful of Northmen toward the harbor. "Find a ship," he ordered. "If I fall, take them north. Take them home." His heart ached as he kissed their brows, Sansa weeping, Arya biting her lip in fury. "Do not look back," he whispered, though he doubted they would obey. Then he turned to face the storm. The streets near the Red Keep were already choked with battle. Robert's roar carried above the clash of steel, his hammer smashing men aside like dolls. Jaime Lannister, clad in gold, cut through the chaos toward him, the Kingslayer against the usurper once more. The two met in the center of the street, hammer against blade, the crowd scattering around them. Every blow Robert swung sent Jaime reeling, but the king's strength was spent too quickly, wine and age slowing him. Jaime's blade darted faster, sharper, striking where the hammer could not reach. Ned arrived with his Northmen just in time to see the clash. He pushed into the circle, his sword drawn, cutting down lions who barred his way. But before he could reach them, Jaime's blade slid past Robert's guard. The king roared, swung wildly, and missed. A heartbeat later, Jaime's sword pierced Robert's side. The world seemed to stop. Robert's hammer fell from his grip with a hollow clang. He staggered, blood pouring down his tunic, his eyes wide with disbelief. Then, with one last curse on his lips, Robert Baratheon collapsed in the street, the life of the usurper spilling into the dust of his own city. Chaos erupted. The stag had fallen. The lions roared in triumph. And Ned Stark, kneeling beside his fallen friend, felt the weight of the realm fall upon him. Jaime wrenched his blade free and pointed it toward Ned. "The king is dead," he declared, his golden hair shining in the sun. "Long live King Joffrey." But Ned rose, his sword dripping with blood, and his voice was iron. "No, the king is dead, aye. And by law, the throne passes to Stannis Baratheon. Joffrey is no true-born heir." The crowd gasped, the city teetered. In that instant, the realm stood at a crossroads, lion, wolf, or stag. And in the shadows, Peter Baelish smiled. For no matter who claimed the crown, the game was his again. The death of Robert Baratheon ripped the heart out of King's Landing. Word spread through the city faster than fire in a dry field. The king had fallen in the streets, cut down by Sir Jaime Lannister. Some said Robert had killed Jaime and bled to death after. Others claimed Ned Stark struck him down. Every version of the tale was louder than the last, and none carried the whole truth. But one truth was clear. The stag was gone. And now the wolves and lions fought for the carcass. Ned Stark stood over Robert's body, grief clenching his chest. He wanted nothing more than to carry his old friend back to Winterfell, lay him to rest in peace beneath the crypts. But there was no peace left. Jaime still stood before him, golden and defiant, the streets filled with swords and blood. "You've killed your king," Ned spat, "and the realm will remember." Jaime's smirk was cold. Aye, they'll remember a drunken brute who lost his throne in his own streets, and they'll remember who claimed it after. At his signal, the lions pressed forward. Ned barely managed to drag Robert's body back with the help of his Northmen before retreating toward the Red Keep. The gates closed behind them, barring the lions out for the moment. The dead king was laid in the throne room, silent beneath the Iron Throne. Varys arrived soon after, slipping through like smoke. His face was pale, though his eyes glittered with calculation. "The city is lost to you, Lord Stark. Cersei has the gold cloaks, Jaime has the streets, and you have only a dead king." Ned's voice was low, dangerous. "Robert's blood cries for justice. His true heir is Stannis. That claim will not die while I still breathe." Varys tilted his head. "Then breathe carefully, my lord, for your life is worth less than a whisper in this city." Even as he spoke, the doors crashed open. Cersei Lannister swept in, flanked by guards. Behind her walked Joffrey, pale and shaking but dressed in crimson, a circlet of gold already upon his brow. "The king is dead," Cersei announced, her voice carrying like a blade. "Long live King Joffrey, first of his name." Some of the council bent their knees at once, Pycelle, Janos Slynt, and others too fearful or greedy to resist. But Ned Stark did not kneel. Sir Barristan stood with him, blade drawn, and a handful of Northmen held their ground. "This boy is no true king," Ned declared. "His claim is false. The throne belongs to Stannis Baratheon, and I will see the law upheld." The chamber erupted in shouts. Cersei's face twisted with fury, but she held her son close, whispering in his ear. Joffrey's young face hardened, his voice breaking as he shouted, "Seize him! Seize the traitor!" The gold cloaks surged forward. Swords clashed in the throne room, the echoes of battle ringing beneath the Iron Throne itself. Ned fought like a wolf, cutting through men with northern steel, his Northmen falling around him one by one. Sir Barristan's blade shone, but even he faltered beneath the tide. Varys slipped into the shadows, his whispers already flying to every corner of the city. Ned was dragged to the ground, a dozen gold cloaks pinning him down. His sword was kicked away, his face bloodied. Still, he glared at Cersei with the cold fury of the North. "This ends in fire and blood," he warned her. She smiled, serene as a cat with a mouse in its claws. "Perhaps, but it will not be my fire nor my blood." From the corner, Petyr Baelish stepped into the light, his chains gone, his fine clothes restored. His smirk was the same as ever, cruel and knowing. "I told you, Lord Stark. You should have trusted me. This city belongs to those who play the game, not to honorable men." Ned's heart sank, not from fear, but from bitter rage. Baelish had slipped the noose once again. That night, as King's Landing burned, the small folk starved, and lions roared through the streets. Ned Stark was thrown into the black cells. His daughters were gone. Whether safe on a ship or in the Queen's hands, he did not know. In the dark, he thought of Winterfell, of the Godswood, of snow falling soft on quiet pines. He thought of his children, scattered across a realm tearing itself apart. And he wondered if the North would ever see peace again. The realm was broken, the wolves were caged, and the lions wore the crown. The black cells swallowed Ned Stark whole. Days bled into nights with no difference between them, just stone, damp, and the slow drip of water echoing in the dark. He thought often of Catelyn, of Robb, of Bran and Rickon, of Arya and Sansa. Were his daughters safe, carried north on some ship, or had the Queen's claws already caught them? The not knowing gnawed at him worse than hunger. Above him, the city tore itself apart. The death of Robert Baratheon was a wound that would not close. The lions declared Joffrey king, placing a golden crown upon the boy's head, while his mother whispered the words he was too young to command. The small folk cursed and rioted, crying for bread, for safety, for vengeance. The wolves and their allies shouted Stannis' name, while others muttered Renley's, though he was far from the city now. In the shadows, Petyr Baelish thrived. He walked the halls of the Red Keep again, whispering into ears, pitting man against man. It was his art, chaos as a ladder, and the rungs were slick with blood. Cersei trusted him, foolishly believing him hers. But Baelish had no queen, no king, no banner. He belonged only to himself. Varys, the spider, slithered through it all. He visited Ned in the dark, as he had once before. His words were soft, but they carried no comfort. You sought to unmask one player, my lord, and in doing so, you lit a fire. Now the whole realm burns. Perhaps that was always the only ending for men like us. Ned met his eyes, weary but unbroken. I am nothing like you, Spider. I sought only the truth. And truth, Varys sighed, is the sharpest blade of all. It cuts even the hand that wields it. At last, the day came when Ned was dragged into the throne room. The hall was crowded. Lords, gold cloaks, and small folk alike, all hungry for blood. At the base of the Iron Throne sat Joffrey, his legs too short to reach the steps, his crown gleaming, his face twisted in cruel determination. Cersei stood. Beside him, calm and beautiful, every word she whispered dripping venom into her son's ear. Petyr Baelish watched from the shadows, his smile faint but triumphant. The herald's voice rang out, Eddard Stark, Lord of Winterfell, hand of the king accused of treason and conspiracy against the crown. Ned was shoved to his knees, his head bowed. The crowd roared insults and curses. He lifted his eyes to Joffrey, the boy king who was no true king at all. He thought of Robert, of the man he had loved as a brother, cut down in the filth of his own city. He thought of Stannis, grim but just, far away on Dragonstone. And he thought of Winterfell, cold and true. Cersei stepped forward. Confess, Lord Stark. Bend the knee, swear loyalty to King Joffrey, and you may yet live. Your daughters may yet live. Ned's heart twisted. Was Arya safe? Was Sansa free? He had no way to know. His honor, his oaths, his life, all of it meant nothing if his children paid the price. For a moment he considered the lie. To confess, to bow, to buy their safety with false words. He was not blind. He knew what the Lannisters were. But he was also a Stark, and Starks did not bend to lies. He raised his voice strong despite the chains. I confess this much. Joffrey Baratheon is no true king. His claim is false. The throne belongs to Stannis, Robert's rightful heir, and though you may kill me, the realm will know the truth. The hall erupted in chaos. Cersei's face blanched, fury flashing in her eyes. Joffrey leapt to his feet, his voice shrill. Then let him die! Bring me his head! The crowd gasped. Even Cersei turned in shock. She had not meant for it to go so far. But the boy's word was law now, and Sir Ilyn Payne stepped forward, his great sword gleaming. Ned Stark closed his eyes and thought of Winterfell, of snow, of wolves, of the quiet peace of home. The blade fell, the throne room erupted in screams. Blood stained the stones. The wolf was dead, but in his death Ned Stark left behind more than silence. His letters had flown north, to Winterfell, to Dragonstone. His truth spread like wildfire, whispered from lord to lord. Joffrey was no true king. The crown was a lie, and so the War of the Five Kings began, not with Baelish's quiet schemes, but with open fire, sharpened by the honor of one man who refused to bow. Petyr Baelish smiled in the shadows. Chaos had come, brighter and fiercer than ever, and somewhere far away the North remembered.